今天是2019年12月30日，2019年马上就要结束了，开始背诵吧。先背诵第一单元 Lesson 1 A Private Conversation. Why did the writer complain to the people behind him? Last week I went to the theater. I had very good seat. The play was very interesting. I did not enjoy it. A young man and a young woman were sitting behind me. They were talking loudly. I got very angry. I could not hear the actors. I turned around again. I looked at the man and the woman angrily. They did not pay any attention. In the end, I could not bear it. I turned around again. I can't hear a word, I said angrily. It's none of your business, the young man said rudely. This is a private conversation. Lesson 2. Breakfast or lunch. Why was the writer's aunt surprised? It was Sunday. I never get up early on Sundays. I sometimes stay in bed until lunchtime. Last Sunday, I got up very late. I looked out of the window. It was dark outside. What a day, I thought. It's raining again. Just then, the telephone rang. It was my Aunt Lucy. I've just arrived by train, she said. I'm coming to see you. But I'm still having breakfast, I said. What are you doing, she asked. I'm having breakfast, I repeated. Dear me, she said. Do you always get up so late? It's 1 o'clock. Lesson 3. Please send me a card. How many cards did the writer send? Postcards always spoil my holidays. Last summer, I went to Italy. I visited museums and sat in public gardens. A friend in winter taught me a few words of Italian. Then he lent me a book. I read a few lines, but I did not understand a word. Every day I thought about postcards. My holiday passed quickly, but I did not send cards to my friends. On the last day, I made a decision. I got up early and bought 37 cards. I spent the whole day in my room, but I did not write a single card. Lesson 4. An exciting trip. Why is Tim finding this trip exciting? Tim is I have just received a letter from my sister, from my brother Tim. He is in Australia, has been there for 6 months. Tim is an engineer. He is working for a big firm, and he has already visited a great number of different places in Australia. He has just bought an Australian car and has gone to Alice Springs, a small town in the center of Australia. He will soon visit Darwin. From there, he will fly to Perth. My brother has never been abroad before, so he's finding this trip very exciting. Lesson 5. No wrong numbers. What does no wrong numbers mean? Mr. James Gard has garage in Silbury, and he has just bought another garage in Pinehurst. Pinehurst is only 5 miles from Silbury, but Mrs. Gard cannot get a telephone for his new garage, so he's just bought 12 pigeons. Yesterday, a pigeon carried the first message from one garage to the other. From Pinehurst to Silbury, the bird covered the distance in 3 minutes. Up to now, Mr. Scott has sent a great many requests for spare parts and other urgent messages from one garage to the other. In this way, he has begun his own private telephone service. Lesson 6. Percy Buttons. Who is Percy Buttons? I've just moved to a house in Bridge Street. Yesterday, a banker knocked at my door. He asked me for a meal and a glass of beer. In return for this, the banker stood on his head and sang songs. I gave him a meal. He ate the food and drank the beer. Then he put a piece of cheese in his pocket and went away. Later, a neighbor told me about it. His name is Percy Buttons. He calls at every house once a month. He calls at every house in the street once a month. He always asks for a meal and a glass of beer. Lesson 7. Too late. Did the detective save the diamonds? The plane was late and detectives were waiting at the airport all morning. They were expecting a valuable parcel of diamonds from South Africa. A few hours earlier, someone had told the police that thieves would try to steal the diamonds. When the plane arrived, Some of the detectives were waiting inside of the main building, and others were waiting on the airfield. 2 men took the puzzle off the plane and carried it into the customs house, while 2 detectives were keeping guard at the door. 2 others opened the puzzle. To their surprise, the precious puzzle was full of stones and sands. Lesson 8. The best and the worst. Why is John's garden the most beautiful one in the town? John Sanders had the most beautiful garden in our town. Nearly everybody enters for the nicest garden competition each year, but John wins every time. Bill Frank's garden is larger than Joe's. Bill works harder than Joe and grows more flowers and vegetables, but John's garden is more interesting. He has made neat paths and has built a wooden bridge over a pool. I like gardens too, but I do not like hard work. Every year, I enter for the garden competition too, and I always win a little prize for the worst garden in the town. Lesson 9. A cold workout. What was the cold workout refer to? What does the cold workout refer to? On Wednesday evening, we went to the town hall. It was the last day of the year, and a large crowd of people had gathered under the town hall clock. It would strike 12 in 20 minutes' time. 15 minutes passed, and then at 5 to 12, the clock stopped. The big minute's hand did not move. We waited and waited, but nothing happened. Suddenly someone shouted, "It's 2 minutes past 12. The clock has stopped." I looked at my watch. It was true. The big clock refused to work up the new year. At that moment, everybody began to laugh and sing. Lesson 10. Not for jazz. What happened to the clapboard? We have no musical instrument. It is called clapboard. It was made in Germany in 1681. Our clapboard is kept in the living room. It has belonged to our family for a long time. The instrument was bought by my grandfather many years ago. Recently, it was damaged by a visitor. She tried to play jazz on it. She struck the keys too hard and 2 of the strings were broken. My father was shocked. Now we're not allowed to touch it. It is being repaired by a friend of my father's. Lesson 11. One good turn deserved another. Who paid for Tony's dinner? I was having a dinner at a restaurant when Tony still came in. Tony worked in a lawyer's office years ago. But he is now working at a bank. He gets good salaries, but he always borrows money from his friends and never pays it back. Tony saw me and came and sat at the same table. He has never borrowed money from me. While he was eating, I asked him to lend me 20 pounds. To my surprise, he gave me the money immediately. I have never borrowed any money from you, Tony said, so now you can pay for my dinner. Lesson 12. Goodbye and good luck. Where is Captain Ellison going and how? Our neighbor, Captain Charles Ellison, will sail from Portsmouth tomorrow. We will meet him at the harbor early in the morning. He will be in his small boat, Topsail. Topsail is a famous little boat. It has sailed across the Atlantic many times. Captain Ellison will set out at 8 o'clock, so we will have plenty of time. We will see his boat, and then we will say goodbye to him. He will be away for 2 months. We are very proud of him. He will take part in important race across the Atlantic. Lesson 13. The Greenwood Boys. Why will the police have a difficult time? The Greenwood Boys are a group of pop singers. At present, they are visiting all parts of the country. They will be arriving here tomorrow. They will be coming by train. At most of the young people in the town will be meeting them at the station. They will be singing at the workers' tomorrow evening. They will be singing at the workers' club. The Greenwood Boys will be staying for 5 days. During this time, they will give 5 performances. As usual, the police will have a difficult time. They will be trying to keep order. It is always the same on these occasions. Lesson 14. Do you speak English? Did the young man speak English? I have a amusing experience last year. After I had left a small village in the south of France, I drove on to the next town. On the way, a young man waved to me. I stopped and he asked me for a lift. As soon as he had got into the car, I said good morning to him in French, and he replied in the same language. Apart from a few words, I do not know any French at all. Neither of us spoke during the journey. I had nearly reached the town when the young man suddenly said, very slowly, Do you speak English? As I soon learned, he was English himself. Lesson 15. 15个 Good news. What was good news? The secretary told me that Mr. Harmsworth would see me. I felt very nervous when I went into his office. He did not look up from his desk when I entered. After I had sat down, he said that the business was very bad. He told me that the firm could not afford to pay such large salaries. 20 people had already left. I knew that my turn had come. Mr. Harmsworth, I said in a weak voice. Don't interrupt, he said. Then he smiled and told me I would receive an extra £1,000 a year. Lesson 16. A polite request. What was the polite request? If you park your car in the wrong place, a traffic policeman will soon find it. You will be very lucky if he lets you go without a ticket. However, this does not always happen. Traffic policemen are sometimes very polite. I found during a holiday in Sweden, I found this note on my car. Sir, we welcome you to our city. This is a no parking area. You will be enjoying your stay here if you pay attention to our street signs. This note is only a reminder. If you received a request like this, you cannot fail to obey it. Lesson 17. Always young. Why does Aunt Jennifer tell anyone how old she is? My Aunt Jennifer is an actress. She must be at least 37 years old. In spite of this, she often appears on the stage as a young girl. Jennifer will have to take part in a new play soon. This time, she will be a girl of 17. In the play, she must appear in a bright red dress and long black stockings. Last year, in another play, she had to wear short socks and a bright orange-colored dress. If anyone ever asks her how old she is, she always answers, Darling, it must be terrible to be grown up. Lesson 18. He often done this. What had happened to the writer's bag? After I had had lunch at a village pub, I looked for my bag. I had left it on the chair beside the door, and now it's not there. It wasn't there. As I was looking for it, the landlord came in. Did you have a good meal? He asked. Yes, thank you, I answered, but I can't pay the bill. I haven't got my bag. The landlord smiled and immediately went out. In a few minutes, he returned with my bag and gave it back to me. I'm very sorry, he said. My dog had taken it into the garden. He often done this. Lesson 19. 19课 Sold out. When will the writer see the play? The play may begin at any moment, I said. It may have begun already, Susan answered. I hurried to the tickets office. May I have 2 tickets, please? I asked. I'm sorry, we've sold out, the girl said. What a pity, Susan exclaimed. Just then, a man hurried to the tickets office. Can I return these 2 tickets? He asked. Certainly, the girl said. I went back to the tickets at once. Could I have those 2 tickets, please? I asked. Certainly, the girl said, but they're for next Wednesday's performance. Do you still want them? I might as well have them, I said sadly. Lesson 20. 20课 One man in the boat. Why is fishing the writer's favorite sport? Fishing is my favorite sport. I often fish for hours without catching anything. In spite of this, but this does not worry me. Some fishermen are unlucky. Instead of catching fish, they catch old boats and rubbish. I am even less lucky. Not even old boats. I never catch anything. After having spent whole mornings on the river, I always go home with an empty bag. You must give up fishing, my friends say. It's a waste of time. But they don't realize one important thing. I'm not really interested in fishing. I'm only interested in sitting in the boat and doing nothing at all. Lesson 21. Mad or not? What does people think the writer is mad? Airplanes are slowly driving me mad. I live near an airport, and passing plane can be heard night and day. The airport was built years ago, but for some reason it could not be used then. Last year, it came into use. Over 100 people must have been driven away from their homes by the noise. I am one of the few people left. Sometimes I think this house will be knocked down by a passing plane. I have been offered a large sum of money to go away, but I'm determined to stay here. Everybody says I must be mad, and they're probably right. Lesson 32. Glass envelope. Why did Jean receive a letter? How did Jean receive a letter from girl? How did Jean receive a letter from foreigner? My daughter Jean never dreamed of receiving a letter from girl of her own age in Holland. Last year we were traveling across a channel, and Jean put a piece of paper with her name and address on it into a bottle. She threw the bottle into the sea. She never thought of it again. But 10 months later, she received a letter from a girl in Holland. Both girls write to each other regularly now. However, they have decided to use the post office. Letters will cost a little more, but they will certainly travel faster. Lesson 23. 23个 A new house. What is a new house special? I had got a letter from my sister yesterday. She lives in Nigeria. In her letter, she said that she would come to England next year. If she comes, she would get a surprise. We are now living in a beautiful new house in the country. Work on it had begun before my sister left. The house was completed 5 months ago. In my letter, I told her that she could stay with us. The house has many large rooms, and there is a lovely garden. This is a very modern house, so it looks strange to some people. It must be the only modern house in the district. Lesson 24. 24课 It could be worse. Had the writer's bag money been stolen? I entered the hotel manager's office and sat down. I had just lost 50 pounds and I felt very upset. I left the money in my room, I said, and it's not there now. The manager was sympathetic, but he could do nothing. Everyone is losing money these days, he said. He started to complain about this wicked world, but was interrupted by a knock at the door. A girl came in and put an envelope on his desk. It contained £50. I found this outside this gentleman's room, she said. Well, I said to the manager, there is still some honesty in this world.
好的，接下来开始第二单元的背诵 Lesson 25 Do the English speak English? Why did the writer not understand the porter? I arrived in London at last. The railway station was big, black and dark. I did not know the way to my hotel, so I asked the porter. I not only spoke English very carefully, but very clearly as well. The porter, however, could not understand me. I repeated my question several times. At last, he understood. He answered me, but he spoke neither slowly nor clearly. I am a foreigner, I said. Then he spoke slowly, but I could not understand it. My teacher never spoke English like that. The porter and I looked at each other and smiled. Then he said something and I understood it. You will soon learn English, he said. I wonder, in England, each person speaks a different language. The English understand each other, but I don't understand them. Do they speak English? Lesson 26 26课 The best art critics. Who is the student best critic? I am an art student and I paint a lot of pictures. Many people pretend that they understand modern art. They always tell you what a picture is about. Of course, many pictures are not about anything. They are just pretty patterns. We like them in the same way that we like pretty curtain material. I think that young children will be often appreciate modern pictures better than anyone else. They notice more. My sister is only 7, but she always tells me whether my pictures are good or not. She came into my room yesterday. What are you doing? She asked. I'm hanging this picture on the wall, I answered. It's a new one. Do you like it? She looked at it critically for a moment. It's all right, she said, but isn't it upside down? I looked at it again. She was right, it was. Lesson 27 27课 A white night 雨夜 What happened to the boys in the night? Late in the afternoon, the boys put up their tent in the middle of the field. As soon as this has done, they cooked meal on the open fire. They were all hungry and the food smelled good. After a wonderful meal, they told stories and sang songs by the campfire. After some time, it began to rain. The boys felt tired, so they put out the fire and crept into their tent. Their sleeping bags were warm and comfortable, so they all slept soundly. In the middle of night, 2 boys woke up and began shouting. The tent was full of water. They all leapt off their sleeping bags and hurried outside. It was raining heavily, and they found that a stream had already formed in the field. The stream wound its way across the field and flowed right under their tent. Lesson 28 No parking. What was Jasper White's problem? Jasper White is one of those real people who believes in ancient myth. He has just bought a new house in the city, but ever since he moved in, he has had troubles with cars and their owners. When he returns home at night, he always finds that someone had parked a car outside his gate. Because of this, he has not been able to get his own car into his garage even once. Jasper has put up no parking signs outside his gate, but this has not had any effect. Jasper now he has put knuckly stone head over the gate. It is one of the ugliest faces I have ever seen. I asked him what it was, and he told me it was Medusa, the Gorgon. Jasper hopes that she will turn cars and their owners to stone. However, none of them has been turned stone yet. But none of them has been turned stone yet. Lesson 29. Taxi. What was the... Does Captain Fawcett think any trip is too dangerous? Captain Ben Fawcett has just bought Your Taxi and has begun a new service. The taxi was a small Swiss airplane called a piloto spotter. This wonderful plane can carry 7 passengers. The most surprising thing about it, however, is that it can land anywhere, on snow, water, or even on a plowed field. Captain Fawcett's first passenger was a doctor who flew from Birmingham to a lowland island in the Welsh mountains. Since then, Captain Fawcett has flown passengers to many unusual places. Once, he led on the roof of the block of flats. And on another occasion, he led in a deserted car park. Captain Fawcett has just refused a strange request from a businessman. The man wanted to fly to Rockall, a lowland island in the Atlantic Ocean, but Captain Fawcett did not take him because the trip was too dangerous. Lesson 30. 第30课 Football or polo. What happened to the man in the boat? The Well is a small river that cuts across the park near my home. I like sitting by the well on fine afternoons. It was warm last Sunday, so I went and sat on the riverbank as usual. Some children were playing games on the riverbank, and there were some people rowing on the river. Suddenly, one of the children kicked the ball very hard, and it went towards a passing boat. Some people on the bank called out to the man in the boat, but he did not hear them. The ball struck him so hard that he nearly fell into the water. I turned to look at the children, but there weren't any in sight. They had all run away. The man laughed when he realized what had happened. He called out to the children and threw the ball back to the bank. 好，第31课 Lesson 31 Success Story. What was Frank's first job? Frank Hawkins. Yesterday afternoon, Frank Hawkins was telling me about his experience as a young man. Before he retired, Frank used to be the head of a very large business company, but as a boy he used to work in a small shop. It was his job to repair bicycles. At that time, he used to work 16 hours a day. He saved money for years, and in 1958, he bought a small workshop of his own. In his 20s, Frank used to make spare parts for airplanes. At that time, he had 2 helpers. In a few years, the small workshop had become a large factory which employed 728 people. Frank smiled when he remembered his hard early years and the long road to success. He was still smiling when the door opened and his wife came in. She wanted him to repair their grandson's bicycle. Lesson 32. Shopping made easy. Who was the thief? Who was the thief? People are not so honest as they once were. The temptation to steal is greater than ever, especially in large shops. A detective recently watched a well-dressed woman who always went into large stores on Monday mornings. One Monday, there were fewer people in the shop than usual when the woman came in, so it was easier for the detective to watch her. First, the woman bought a few small articles. After a little time, she chose one of the most expensive dresses in the shop and handed it to her assistant, who wrapped it up for her as quickly as possible. Then the woman simply took the parcel and walked out of the shop without paying. After she was arrested, the detective had found out that the shop assistant was her daughter. The girl gave her mother a free dress once a week. Lesson 33. Out of the darkness. Why was the girl in hospital? Nearly a week passed before the girl was able to explain what had happened to her. One afternoon, she set out from the coast in a small boat and was caught in a storm. Towards evening, the boat struck the rock and the girl jumped into the sea. She then swam to the shore after spending the whole night in the water. During that time, she covered a distance of 8 miles. Early next morning, she saw light ahead. She knew she was near the shore because the light was high up on the cliffs. On arriving at the shore, the girl struck up the cliff towards the light she had seen. That was all she remembered. When she woke up a day later, she found herself in hospital. Lesson 34. 34课 Quick work. How long had the police taken to find his bicycle? Dan Robinson has been worried all week. Last Tuesday, he received a letter from the local police. In the letter, she was asked to call at the station. Dan was wondered why he was wanted by the police, but he went to the station yesterday and now he is not worried anymore. At the station, he was told by a smiling policeman that his bicycle had been found. 5 days ago, the police told him. The bicycle was picked up in a small village 400 miles away. It is now being sent to his home by train. Dan was most surprised when he heard the news. He was amused too, because he never expected the bicycle to be found. It was stolen 20 years ago, when Dan was a boy of 15. Lesson 30, 应该是 Lesson 35 第35课 Stop thief. How did Roy stop the thieves? Ron Jordan used to drive a taxi a short while ago. However, he became a bus driver, and he has not regretted it. He is finding his new work far more exciting. When he was driving along Catboard Street recently, he saw 2 thieves rush out of a shop and run towards a waiting car. One of them was carrying a bag full of money. Roy acted quickly and drove the bus straight at the thieves. The one with the money got such fright that he dropped the bag. And the thieves were trying to get away in their car. Roy drove his bus back into the car. While the battered car was moving away, Roy stopped his bus and telephoned the police. The thief's car was badly damaged and easy to recognize. Shortly afterwards, the police stopped the car and both men were arrested. Lesson 36 第36 Across the Channel. What is Debbie going to try to do? Debbie Hart is going to swim across the English Channel tomorrow. She is going to set out from the French coast at 5 o'clock in the morning. Debbie is only 11 years old, but she hopes to set up a new world record. She is a strong swimmer, and many people feel that she is sure to succeed. Debbie's father will set out with her in a small boat. Mr. Scott has treated his daughter for years. Tomorrow, he will be watching her anxiously as she swims the long distance to England. Debbie intends to take short rests every 2 hours. She will have something to drink, but she will not eat any solid food. Most of Debbie's school friends will be waiting for her on the English coast. Among them will be Debbie's mother. Who swims across the channel herself when she was a girl? Lesson 30应该是第30多少了 ？Lesson 37第37课The Olympic Games 奥林匹克运动会。When was the last time this country hosted the Olympic Games? The Olympic Games will be held in this country in 4 years' time. As a great many people will be visiting the country, the government will be building new hotels, amazed stadiums, and an Olympic standard swimming pool. They will also be building new roads and a special railway line. The game will be held just outside the capital, and the whole area will be called Olympic City. Workers will have completed the new roads by the end of this year. By the end of next year, they will have finished the work on the new stadium. The fantastic modern buildings have been designed by Kurt Gonder. Everybody will be watching anxiously as the new buildings go up. We are all very excited and are looking forward to the Olympic Games because they have never been held before in this country. Lesson 38第38课 Nothing. Everything except the weather. Why did Harrison sell his house so quickly? My old friend Harrison had lived in the Mediterranean for many years before he returned to England. He had always dreamed of retiring in England and had planned to settle down in the country. He had no sooner returned than he bought a house and went to live there. Almost immediately, he began to complain about the weather, for even though it was still summer, it rained continually and it was often bitterly cold. After so many years of sunshine, Harrison got a shock. He acted as if he had never lived in England. In the end, it was far more he could bear. He had hardly had time to settle down when he sold the house and left the country. The dream he had had for so many years ended there. Harrison had thought of everything except the weather. Lesson 39第39课了。39课 Am I alright? Why Mr. Gilbert telephoned Dr. Millington. While John Gilbert was in hospital, he asked his doctor to tell him whether his operation had been successful, but the doctor refused to do so. However, the following day, the patient asked for a bedside telephone when he was alone. He telephoned the hotel exchange and asked for Dr. Millington. When the doctor answered the phone, Mr. Gilbert said that he asked for a certain patient. Mr. Gilbert said that he was inquiring about a certain patient, Mr. John Gilbert. He asked if Mr. Gilbert's operation had been successful, and the doctor told him that it had been. He asked whether when Mr. Gilbert would allow to go home, and the doctor told him that he would have to stay in hospital for another 2 weeks. Then Dr. Millington asked the caller if he was a relative of the patient. No, the patient said, I am Mr. John Gilbert. Lesson 第39课结束了，第40课 Lesson 40 Food and Talk. Food and Talk. Does Mrs. Starling Does Mrs. Ramble a good companion at dinner? Last week in a dinner party, the hostess asked me to sit next to Mrs. Ramble. Mrs. Ramble was a large, unsmiling lady in a tight black dress. She did not even look up when I took my seat beside her. Her eyes were fixing on her plate, and in a short time she was busy eating. I tried to make conversation. A new play is coming to the Globe soon. I said, Will you be seeing it? No, she answered. Will you be spending your holidays abroad this year? I asked. No, she answered. Will you be staying in England? I asked. No, she answered, in despair. I asked her whether she was enjoying her dinner. Young man, she answered, if you eat more and talk less, we would both enjoy our dinner. Lesson 41 第41课 Do you call that a hand? What type of shopping does the writer enjoy, do you think? Do you call that a hand? I said to my wife. You needn't be so rude about that, my wife answered as she looked at herself in the mirror. I sat down on one of those modern chairs with holes in it and waited. We had been in the head shop for half an hour, and my wife was still in front of the mirror. We must buy things we don't need, I suddenly remarked suddenly. I regretted saying it almost immediately, almost at once. You needn't have said that, my wife answered. I needn't remind you of the terrible tie you bought yesterday. I find it beautiful, I said. And a man can never have too many ties, and a woman can't have too many hands, she answered. 10 minutes later, we walked out of the shop together, and my wife was wearing a hand that looks like a lighthouse. Lesson 42 第42课 Not very musical. What happened to the snake charmer begin to play jazz? As we had a long walk through one of the market of Old Delhi, we stopped at the square to have a rest. After a time, we noticed a snake charmer with 2 large baskets at the other side of the square. So we went to have a look at him. As soon as he saw us, he picked up a long pipe which was covered with coins and opened one of the baskets. When he began to play a tune, we had our first glimpse of the snake. It rose up from the basket and began to follow the movements of the pipe. We got most surprised when the snake charmer suddenly began to play jazz and modern pop songs. The snake, however, continued to dance slowly. It obviously have difficulty to say. It's obviously difficult to tell the difference between modern Indian music and jazz. Now, lesson 开始43个 Lesson 43 Over the South Pole. How was the plane able to clear the mountains in 1929? 3 years after his flight over the South Pole, the American explorer R.E. Byrd successfully flown over the South Pole for the first time. Though at the beginning, Byrd and his men were able to take a great many pictures and photographs of the mountains that lay below. They soon ran into serious trouble. At one point, it seemed certain that their plane would crash. It could only get over the mountains if it rose to 10,000 feet. Byrd at once ordered his men to throw out to heaven food sacks. The plane was then able to rise and clear the mountains by 400 feet. Byrd now knew that he would be able to reach the South Pole. That was 300 miles away, for there were no more mountains in sight. The aircraft was able to fly over the endless wide plain without difficulty. Lesson 44 Through the forest. How did Mrs. Sterling get her bag back? Mr. N. Sterling did not think of the risk she was taking when she ran after two men through a forest. They had rushed up to her while she was having a picnic at the edge of a forest with her children, and tried to steal her handbag. In the struggle, the strap was broke, and with the bag in their possession, the men began to running through the trees. Mrs. Sterling got so angry that she ran after them. She was soon out of breath, but she continued to run. When she caught up with them, she saw that they had sat down and was going through the contents of the handbag, so she ran toward them. Both men got such a fright that they dropped back and went away. The strap needs mending, said Mrs. Sterling after. But they did not steal anything. 第45课 Lesson 45 第4个 Clear Conscience. How did Sam get his money back? The whole village soon learned that a large sum of money had been lost. Sam Benton, the local butcher, had lost his wallet while sending his savings to the post office. Sam was sure that the wallet must have been found by one of the villagers, but it was not returned to him. 3 months passed. and one morning, then one morning, he found his wallet outside his gate. It had been wrapped up in newspaper with a note in it which said, "A thief, yes, but 20% a thief." 2 months later, some more money was sent back with another note. Only 50% are thief now. In the end, all Sam's money was paid back in the same way. The last note said, "Now, I was 100% thief now. I'm 100% honest now. I'm 100% honest now." Now lesson 46. 46个 Expensive and uncomfortable. What did the man in the story do? When the plane from London arrived at Sydney Airport, the workers began to unload the wooden boxes. A number of wooden boxes which contained clothing. No one could tell the difference. No one could account for one of the boxes was extremely heavy. It suddenly occurred to one of the workers to open up the box. He was astonished at what he found. A man was lying in the box on top of a pile of wooden goods. He was so surprised at being discovered that he did not even try to run away after he was arrested. The man remaining hid in the box before the plane left London. He had had a long and uncomfortable trip, for he had confined to the wooden box for over 18 hours. The man was ordered to pay $3,500 for $500 for the cost of the trip. The normal price of a ticket is $2,000. 好，第47课 Lesson 47. A thirsty ghost. What evidence? A fear of a ghost. A pub house, which was bought by Ian Thompson, which was recently bought by Ian Thompson, is up for sale. Mr. Thompson is going to sell it because it is haunted. He told me that he could not go to sleep one night because he heard a strange noise coming from the bar. The next morning, he found that the doors had been blocked by chairs and the furniture had been moved. Though Mr. Thompson had turned the lights off before he went to sleep, they were on in the morning. He also said that he had found 5 empty whiskey bottles, which the ghost must have drunk the night before. When I suggested that some villagers must have come in for a free drink, Mr. Thompson shook his head. The villagers have told him that they were not accept the pub, even if he gives it away. 好，第二单元最后一个 Lesson 48 第48课 Do you want to tell me something? Why did the writer suddenly felt worried. Dentists always ask questions when it is impossible for you to answer. My dentist has just pulled out one of my teeth and had told me to rest for a while. I tried to say something, but my mouth was full of cotton wool. He knew I collected matchboxes and asked me whether my collection was growing. He then asked how my brother was and whether I liked my new job in London. In answer to these questions, I neither nodded or made strange noises. Meanwhile, my tongue was busy searching out the hole where the tooth had been. Suddenly, I felt very nervous, but could not say anything. When the dentist at last removed the cotton wool from my mouth, I was able to tell him that he had pulled the wrong tooth.
好，接着背诵第3单元 Lesson 49 The End of a Dream. How did the dream end? Tired of sleeping on the floor, a young man in Tehran saved up 4 years to buy a real bed. For the first time in his life, he became the proud owner of a bed which had springs and a mattress. Because the weather was very hot, he carried the bed up the roof of his house. He slept very well for the first 2 days, but on the third night, a storm blew up. A gust of wind swept the bed off the roof and sent it crashing into the courtyard below. The young man did not wake up until the bed had struck the ground. Though the bed was crashed into pieces, the man was miraculously unhurt. When he woke up, he was still on the mattress, glancing at the beds of wood and metal that lay around him. The man sadly picked up the mattress and carried it into his house. After he had put it on the floor, he probably went to sleep again. Lesson 50 第50课 Taking for a ride. Why did the writer not get off the bus at Woodford Green? I love traveling in country, but I don't like losing my way. I went on an excursion recently, but my trip took me longer than I expected. I'm going to Woodford Green, I said to the conductor as I got on the bus, but I don't know where it is. I'll tell you where to get off, answered the conductor. I sat in the front of the bus to get a good view of countryside. After some time, the bus stopped. Looking around, I realized with a shock that I was only passenger left on the bus. You'll have to get off here, the conductor said. This is as far as we go. Is this Woodford Green? I asked. Oh dear, said the conductor suddenly. I forgot to put you off. It doesn't matter, I said. I'll get off here. We are going back now, said the conductor. Answered the conductor, said the conductor. Well, in that case, I prefer to stay on the bus, I answered. 好 Lesson 51第51课 Reward for virtue. Why did Hugh still not work? My friend Hugh has always been fat, but things got so bad recently that he decided to go on a diet. He began his diet a week ago. First of all, he wrote out a long list of the food which were forbidden. The list included most of the things he loves. butter, potatoes, rice, beer, milk, chocolate, and sweets. I paid him a visit. Yesterday I paid him a visit. I rang the bell and not surprised to say that he was still as fat as ever. He led me into his room, and hurried hide a large parcel under his desk. It was obviously that he was very embarrassed. When I asked what he was doing, he smiled guiltily and then put the parcel on the desk. He explained that his dad was so strict that he had to reward himself sometimes. Then he showed me the contents of the bag. It contains 5 large bars of chocolate and 3 bags of sweets. Lesson 52 第52课 The prettiest carpet. A pretty carpet. What is the redder's carpet made of? We have just moved into our new house, and I have been working hard all morning. I have been trying to get my new room in order. This has not been easy, because I own over 1,000 books. To make matters worse, the room was rather small, so I have temporarily to put my books on the floor. At that moment, they covered every inch of floor space, and I actually have to work on them to get in or out of the room. A short while ago, my sister helped me to carry one of my old bookcases up the stairs. She came into my room and got a big surprise when she saw all those books on the floor. This is the prettiest carpet I have ever seen, she said. She gazed at it for some time, then ended. You don't need bookcases. You don't need bookcases at all. You can sit here in your spare time and read the carpet. 52课第53课 Lesson 53 53课 Hot steak. What caused the fire? Firemen at last put out a big forest fire in California. Since then, they have been trying to find out how the fire began. Forest fires are often caused by broken glass or by cigarette ends, which people carelessly threw away. Yesterday, the firemen searched the ground carefully, but were not able to find any broken glass. They were also quite sure that a cigarette end did not start the fire. This morning, however, a fireman accidentally discovered the cause. He noticed the remains of a snake, which wound around the electric wires of a 16,000-volt power line. In this way, he was able to dissolve the mystery. The explanation was simple but very unusual. A bird had snatched up the snake from the ground and dropped it on the wires. The snake then wound itself around the wires. After this had done, it sent sparks down to the ground, and this immediately started a fire. Lesson 第53课就是 Lesson 54第54课 Stinking fingers. What 2 interruptions did the writer have? After breakfast, I sent the children to school, and then I went to the shops. It was still early when I returned home. The children were at school, and my husband was at work. And the home was quiet. So I decided to make some meat pies. In a short time, I was busy mixing butter and flour, and my fingers were soon covered with sticking pastry. At exactly that moment, the telephone rang. Nothing could have been more annoying. I picked up the receiver between my two sticking fingers and was dismayed when I recognized the voice of Haley Bates. It took me 10 minutes to persuade her to ring back later. I hung up the receiver at last. What a mess! There was pastry on my fingers, on the telephone, and on the doorknobs. I had no sooner got back to the kitchen than the doorbell rang loud enough to wake the dead. This time was the postman, and he wanted me to sign for a register letter. 第54课 Lesson 55第55课 Not a golden mine 并非金矿 What the team find? What did the team find? What was the team find? The dreams of fighting losing treasure almost came true recently. A new machine called the Revealer has been invented and has been used to detect gold, which had been buried in the ground. The machine was used in a cave near the seashore, where it is said pirates used to bury gold. The pirates would bury gold in the cave and then fail to collect it. Armed with the new machine, a searching party went into the cave, hoping to find buried treasure. The leader of the party searching the soil near the entrance to the cave when the machine showed that there was gold under the ground. Very excited, the party dug a hole 2 feet deep. They finally find a small gold coin, which was almost worthless. Then the party searched the whole cave thoroughly, but they did not find anything except an empty tin trunk. In spite of this, many people are confident that the revealer will reveal something fairly soon. 好，到第56课 Lesson 56 56课 Faster than sound. How fast did the winning car go? Once a year, a race is held for old cars. A lot of cars entered for the race last year, and there was a great deal of excitement just before it began. One of the most handsome cars was a Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost. The most unusual car was a Benz which had only 3 wheels. Built in 1885, it was the oldest car taking part. After a great many loud explosions, the race began. Many of the cars broke down on the course, and some drivers spent more time under their cars than in them. A few cars, however, completed the race. The winning car reached the speed of 840 miles an hour, much faster than any of its rivals. It sped downhill at the end of the race, and its driver had a lot of trouble trying to stop it.
The race gave everyone a great deal of pleasure. It was very different from modern car races, but no less exciting. 好，第66课 Lesson 6，第56课，第57课 Lesson 57。Can I help you, madam? Can I help you, madam? Did the woman get what she wanted? A woman in jeans stood at the window of an expensive shop. Though she hesitated for a while, she finally went in and wanted to see the dress that was in the window. The assistant who served her did not like the way she was dressed. Glancing at her scornfully, he told her that the dress was sold. The woman walked out of the shop angrily and decided to punish the assistant next day. She returned to the shop the following morning, dressed in a fur coat, with a handbag in one hand and a long umbrella in the other. After searching out the rude assistant, she asked for the same dress. The assistant, not realizing who she was, the assistant was eager to serve her this time. With great difficulty, he climbed into the shop window to get the dress. As soon as she saw it, the woman said she did not like it. She enjoyed herself making the assistant bring almost everything in the window before finally buying the dress he had first asked for. Lesson 58, Lesson 58. A blessing in disguise. Why does the vicar refuse to cut off the tree? The tiny village friendly is said to possess a cursed tree because the tree was mentioned in newspaper. The number of the visitors to Friendly has now increased. The tree was planted near the church 50 years ago, but it is only in recent years it has gained a naval reputation. It is said that if anyone touches the tree, he will have bad luck. If he picks the leaf, he will die. Many villagers believe that the tree has already completed a number of victims. The vicar has been asked to have the tree cut down, but so far he has refused. He has pointed out the tree was a useful source of income, as tourists have been coming from all parts of the country to see it. In spite of all that has been said, the tourists have been picking the leaves and cutting their names on the tree trunk. So far, not one of them has been struck down by sudden death. 好，第59课了 Lesson 59, In or Out. Why did Rex run away? Our dog Rex, used to sit outside our front gate and bark. Every time he want to come in the garden, he would bark until someone opened the gate. As the neighbors complained of noise, my husband spent weeks training him to press his paw on the ledge to let himself in. Rex soon became an expert at opening the gate. However, I was going out shopping last week. I noticed him was in the garden near the gate. He was barking this time so that someone would let him out. Since then, he has developed another bad habit. As soon as he opened the gate from outside, he came in the garden and waits until the gate shuts. Then he sits and barks until someone let him out. After this, he immediately let himself in and begins barking again. Yesterday, my husband removed the gate and Rag got so annoying. And we have not seen him since. Lesson 60 60课了。The future. Does Madame Baliskin said come true? At a village fair, I decided to visit a fortune called Madame Baliskin. I went into her tent and she told me to sit down. After I had given her some money, he looked into a crystal ball and said, "A relation of yours is coming to see you. She will be arriving this evening and intends to stay for a few days. The moment you left this tent, you will get a big surprise. A woman you know well will rush towards you. She will speak to you and then she will lead you away from this place. That is all." As soon as I went outside, I almost forget all about Madame Baliskin, because my wife hurried towards me. "Where have you been hiding?" she asked impatiently. Your sister will be here in less than an hour, and we must be at the station to meet her. We are late already." As she went away, I followed her out of the fair. Lesson 61 第61课了。The trouble with the hubble. What was the special importance of a telescope in space? The Hubble telescope was launched into space by NASA on April 20, 1990, at a cost of over $1 billion. Right start at the beginning, there was trouble with the Hubble. The pictures it sent us were very disappointing because its main mirror was faulty. NASA is now going to put the telescope right. It will soon be sending 4 astronauts to repair it. The shuttle Endeavour will be taking the astronauts to the Hubble. A robot arm from the Endeavour will grab the telescope and hold it while the astronauts make the necessary repairs. Of course, the Hubble is above the Earth's atmosphere, so it will soon be sending us the clearest pictures of the stars and distant galaxies which we have ever seen. The Hubble will tell us a great deal about the age and size of the universe. By the time you read this, the Hubble's eagle eye will have sent us thousands and thousands of wonderful pictures. 好，今天背诵的最后一课，这一期的学习的62课 Lesson 62 课 After the fair. What was the danger to the villages after the fair? Fairmen had been fighting the forest fair for nearly 3 weeks before could get it under control. A short while before, great trees had covered the countryside for miles around. Now, smoke still rose up from the warm ground over the desolate hills. Winter was coming on, and the hills threatened the countryside. The surrounding village was destroyed. For heavy rain would not only wash away the soil, but would cause serious floods as well. When the fire had last been put out, the forest authority ordered several tons of a special type of grass seed which would grow quickly. The seed was spread over the ground in huge quantities by airplanes. The plane had been planting the seeds for nearly a month when it began to rain. Since by then, however, in many places, the grass had already taken root. In place of great trees which had been planted there for centuries, patches of green had begun to appear in blacked soil. 好啊，这一期是1到62课的背诵就到这里吧。好，下期见吧，拜拜。